All right, welcome everybody. My name's Chris Price. I'm the Academic Programs Manager for the SUNY Center for Professional Development. So welcome to this Faculty Development Community of Practice webinar. This is the second webinar that we've done this semester. If you're not familiar with the Faculty Development Community of Practice, it's a group of those of us who all work with faculty on teaching and learning, work in teaching and learning centers, or do other kind of instructional design work. Basically, it's a very wide network of folks across SUNY who do all kinds of instructional support work. And so where we do most of our communicating is in workplace. So I'm going to put in the chat the link to our workplace group. I'm guessing many of you found out about this session there, but if you're not a member of the group, it's one of the largest groups in workplace. We're at about 750 people right now, so please go ahead and sign up. It's an open group, anybody can sign up. The other thing too is if you're interested in doing a webinar yourself, send me an email and I would be happy to schedule one. We have a couple that we're planning for the spring, but we could always fit another one in or schedule you for the fall of 20. So my email address is there. I started the recording. And speaking of the recording, that will be posted in our workplace group. So if you're not already in workplace and you want to see the recording, you just need to go there, and you could view all the other past recordings of our webinars there as well. So I want to welcome Andrea MacArgel from Binghamton University. Andrea is actually on the Faculty Development Community of Practice Advisory Board, and I've worked with her for a few years, and she's going to talk to us today about best practices and techniques for consulting with faculty. I'm going to turn off my camera and mute myself.
Hi, everybody. I'm hoping you all can hear me well. Thank you all for inviting me. I think by inviting, I was voluntold by Chris, but that's okay. I'm here to talk about best practices and techniques for consulting with faculty. And I wanted to first start with what the advertised objective was. And I'm sorry, I don't have like a good instructional designer, very specific learning objectives. But basically, I'm here to guide a discussion about how to approach faculty in the consultations, and I added this green part, the one-on-one or small group part, because it's really focusing on those one-on-one meetings, or maybe two faculty and one instructional designer or faculty development staff. It's not so much focusing on when you have a workshop or anything like that. This is just the meetings. And my agenda is very basic. I'm just going to give you a overview of Binghamton so you can understand the context of what I'm suggesting and what we do. I'm going to talk about what we do before, during, and after the meeting, and then open discussion for everybody to talk. And I also have some time embedded in the before, after, and during the meeting part where we can talk about at the same time what you guys are doing, because I know that we have a lot of people from various different SUNYs or maybe some other non-SUNYs. So a little bit about me. That's me right there. I went skiing on the first day at Greek Peak with the snow on one trail because I don't do the black diamonds. But that's me right there in the Melanie colored shirt jacket. I'm the Director of Instructional Design Services here at Binghamton University. And our Center for Learning and Teaching, we've been around for about 6 years now, maybe 6 or 7 years. So we're not a long-running CLT in the fashion that we are right now. There are 4 of us on my staff. There's 2 folks that do instructional design work. Many of you know Cherie. Cherie and I do the instructional design work, and then we have Elise and Sarah who do more development work. So this would be videography or course development. Cherie and I focus mainly on design, and we don't, and I should say asterisks here, we don't technically do a lot of development of courses for faculty, but not never. And then Elise and Sarah, they work more on the development, and that's again with an asterisk because they also help with design as well. Our team is not, unlike some of your teams, we don't do Blackboard support, and we also don't do ed tech support. We have folks on campus that do that. So I know that a lot of the conversation that I'm going to have is not focused on how to best support Blackboard or iClickers or whatever technology you guys use. We're strictly design people. But we do have people on campus that do this. We have a training center that does the training for our streaming media server, Panopto. They train on WebEx, they train Camtasia and Google, and then we have our IT does. We call it My Courses, but it's Blackboard and iClickers. So we don't do this here. So this might vary at your institution, but I wanted to provide that context for you all. So just a little bit about Binghamton University. We have 6 colleges / schools, pharmacy school, our liberal arts school, community and public affairs, our Watson, which is engineering and nursing. I think I got them all. Yeah. Oh, and School of Management. And we have over 130 undergrad programs and over 80 graduate programs. We have almost 18,000 students, a majority of which are undergraduate students, and we have most of our faculty are full-time faculty. So you can see that about 75% of our faculty around are full-time. So we, unlike a lot of folks here that might work at community colleges, where I know that where I previously worked at community college, there were a lot more part-time adjunct faculty. We work mostly with full-time faculty. All of our services are available to adjuncts, but most of our interactions are with folks that are full-time. And a lot of my suggestions are going to be based on Google and the Google suite of products, because we are a Google campus and I'm a Google lover. These are Google Slides, not PowerPoint. And so you'll see that a lot of the suggestions I make here are using the Google suite. I'm sure that they could be translated into the Microsoft suite, but just know we are a Google campus. I'm going to first start off with what we tend to do before the meetings. And I say we, that my team varies as to what they do, but in general, this is our process. So first, we have to present the value of our center to the campus. And we do this first with new faculty orientation. Our Center for Learning and Teaching is in charge of new faculty orientation. So our faculty are inundated, I shouldn't say inundated, but presented with the value of the CLT prior to even attending the university or coming here, sitting on campus after their interviews. So we go to new faculty orientation. We also attend the Faculty Senate meetings to talk about specific topics. When we have initiatives that we're trying to promote, we'll go to our Faculty Senate Executive Committee meetings and the Faculty Senate as a whole meetings to get in front of the faculty. Same goes for college, school, or department meetings. So we will contact the admin assistants at different colleges, schools, and departments to get on the agenda for these meetings. These are typically not just to talk about, what our services are, but to focus on specific initiatives. I'm thinking, many of you, I'm sure, are involved in the SUNY OER initiative. And this semester, I've been going to a lot of the school and college meetings to promote specific agenda items. And then we also send emails directed to the faculty, either on our general listserv or for specific purposes. Again, OERs or online learning will get all the teachers that are teaching, or all the instructors that are teaching online in a specific semester. And when we are offering our teaching online certification program, we'll email them specifically. And one of the ways that we like to do this is through mail merge, because the faculty seem to respond more when the email appears to be directed towards them. And I know that you can do this with Microsoft Outlook, but since we are a Google campus, we use a product called Yet Another Mail Merge. And this we use for almost everything because it is very easy to use. And all you do is write a draft email in your Gmail, and then you have your Google Sheet, and it is an add-on in Google Sheets. It is free for if you only want to send 50 emails, and you pay, I believe, $40 a year if you want to send up to 1,000 emails. And so we've purchased this, and we send a lot of emails using Yet Another Mail Merge, because you can make it look personalized and in general, we see a lot more response when we have, hello, Professor blah, blah, and we use specific, their course, and it makes it seem like we're sending personalized emails. So I would definitely recommend this.
Andrea,
Yes.
would you like me to share the slide deck at the end? Maybe not now, but.
Sure, yeah,
Okay.
you can, yeah, because you can see I have links there. So
Links,
you definitely can share the slides at the end.
Okay.
And yeah, and it's this link will go to the add-on in Google Sheets, but you can definitely just, type yet another mail merge. And it's very easy. I know that there are other mail merge tools that we have tried prior to yet another mail merge. One is called UltraDocs, and that one is super confusing. This one is very, very simple. And it also tracks the emails. So what I really like about that is you can see who's opened it and who's clicked on it and who's responded. You can see I've also said this is not perfect, because it seems that when they have responded or clicked on it on some phones, it does not track it. And so I don't know if that's a setting that they have or what have you, because I know I've gotten responses from people, and then in the tracking report, it'll say, oh, this person hasn't even read it. And I was like, oh, but they responded it, so that doesn't make sense. So it's not perfect, but it's been very helpful for us, and we've been using this for a number of years. So also, what I like to do is make setting up appointments with you easy. And so what I mean by this is that it drives me insane, and maybe this is a personal preference, but I'm sure other people feel the same way, is the back and forth emails. Are you available at this time? What day are you available? Are you available at 11? It's very, very annoying. And so what I suggest is to, at a bare minimum, make your calendar public so they can see when you are available. And this doesn't mean that for Google, again, that you have to share what you're doing at every time. You can set it into the free busy option, but making your calendar public makes it so that the faculty members can see when you're free and when you're not free. I think this is also helpful to me because I like most of you, are very busy. And so I would like them to recognize that my time is not, infinite. And when they see my calendar, they see they're busy. They're not going to get here 10 minutes late because they know that I have something going on. What I personally use is a scheduling tool. And the one that I use is called Doodle Meet Me. What I do is I have in my email signature, I have a link to my Doodle Meet Me, and it connects to your Google Calendar. So again, Google, and then they can see when you're free and busy. The left-hand one is what they see when they click on that link. And so you can put some narrative text before, they call it good to know, and I put in there, pick a location, tell me, I give them some directions. They do not follow these directions 100%, but at least they are there, and maybe, 50% of them will follow the directions. The one where I ask them to do 2 options, that rarely gets done, or that don't put stuff right after other stuff. They try, but so it's not perfect. It's not a perfect thing. What I do also like about Google Doodle Meet Me is that if you're ever, we get a lot of doodle polls to set up meetings. I know that Chris sends them a lot, and it always makes it look like I'm really on top of these, but it's because it already fills it out for me, because I already have this Doodle Meet Me set up. I just, whenever you get a Doodle calendar poll to set up anything, you just click on it and it's already filled out for you. So it's really nice. I've trained a lot of faculty to not even ask me to have a meeting. They just go into previous emails and then click on it and just put the meeting on with the Doodle Meet Me. So it's really easy to avoid that extra email communication. And then on the right is what it looks like to you, and you can see what they've written. You can pick your selection, and it sends them an email, and then it goes on to your calendar. So I find this to be really easy. I know there are other options, 2 of them that I've played around with and not liked as much as Doodle Meet Me are Calendly and Appointlet. These ones do allow for more control, I guess you could say, over an options. I just have always liked this Doodle, but whichever you prefer, or if there's another one that is better and you all know it, please share it with me. But this one has been working well for me. So making the appointment scheduling easy, it has saved a lot of time for me and a lot of back and forth email, and makes you get on top of your email. All right, next. What I also do, and this is again more email focused, is I do some templated responses. Like I said, we're not Blackboard support, and a lot of times folks will contact us for Blackboard support. So I've got an email template set up here that just says contact the ITS help desk, and obviously it's nicer worded than that. But you can set that up. And then I wonder if Cherie is on here because you can see my filtered thing. You can also set up filters in your email so that if you get a certain someone that keeps emailing you the same certain question, you can set it up so it sends them this templated email. So it's sort of like an out of office email, but for one person, so that every time that one person emails you, they get this quote out of office or this templated email. So maybe you know this particular person is impatient, and you can say, I've gotten your email, allow me some time to respond. And I find this to be quite helpful when you need that sort of filtered out of office email. So I'm still on before the meeting. If you have an inviting space, then I would have the meeting in that inviting space. If you have coffee, water, snacks, nice furniture. We at Binghamton, we don't necessarily have a good space for meetings. So a lot of the time we will go to them if possible, because then they're in their space, and it saves on them having to come over to you. Our space is sort of hidden, and it's not conducive for meetings. But if they don't have a space, maybe they have a shared office or some such like that. We also meet with faculty or other instructors in comfortable spaces on campus, like coffee or something like that. So it's more relaxed. All right, so now I'm going to break from me talking and say, before the meeting, what do you do? Does anybody have any suggestions or any comments that they have about what they do before they actually meet with the faculty member?
So if folks want to use the chat, feel free to use the chat for this, but if you'd like to say something, you certainly can do that as well. There's a way to raise your hand. So ideally you would do that, and I'll unmute you, but you can unmute yourself as well. So if you'd rather not say something, just go ahead and post something in the chat. And while folks are doing that, I'll just sort of second that suggestion to meet with them in a more casual, relaxed setting, or even at their office. I mean, everything I've always read about consultations is that it's really important to that people feel comfortable, right? And that people feel like they're on their own turf. If you have them always come to your space, they may definitely be less willing to share. And so.
It's especially, I think, true for, and I know this is not how we work here, but I know that I heard that some people are, I don't want to say the word mandated, but strongly suggested to meet with CLT staff if they're not, quote, doing a good job in the classroom. Now, that's not how it works for us. We're very optional. People aren't required to meet with us. Nobody's required to ever interact with us if they don't want to. But I could see how it could feel like punishment if they have to go somewhere and they were bad or something like that. But if you go to them, or you meet in this like neutral third party place, and you're having coffee, it's much more relaxing, and they're much more likely to be open.
So there's two comments so far. Kathy Jo Gallo says that she does initial meetings over coffee at the cafe on campus. Anne Perlman says, at times I would ask if they could send any course information that I could review before the meeting.
Yeah, that's a great idea. And I've thought about that too. I've even thought about like having them do some sort of, I don't know, form or like pre-meeting, thoughts, and I've never implemented that, but has anybody ever done that and it's been successful? I always just don't want it to be so onerous on them that they don't want to meet with me if I'm making them do like homework before they even meet with me. But I can see the value, just like Anne said, about having them send stuff. And sometimes they'll send syllabus or assignments or add me to a course or something like that.
Yeah, that gives you a little more, like Ann said there, she added, gives her a little more information so that they're comfortable when you're meeting with them.
Is that it? Move on.
That's it so far. Anybody else? Anybody want to jump in with their microphone or on the phone? Oh, there's one more. Laura Schrader said, I most often meet with faculty in the online learning office. We have a recording suite that provides the right amount of space and a PC for faculty to access their course. So that's a great idea. We sit side by side, which makes it efficient for me to offer assistance.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I mean, again, this is, I think one of the things about this presentation that, Andrea and I already talked about is that it's so context specific. So, it may not make practical sense for you to meet with faculty in the cafe if you're going to be going over their online course and, and you're huddled around a laptop. It might be better to be in an office with a large screen that you could kind of sit and see easily. So.
Right, yeah, it definitely depends on the context. All right, so I'm going to move on to what we do during the meeting. And so the CLT, we have a standardized intake form that we use when we're consulting with faculty. And I am going to give credit to the previous director, Eric Mahan-Howd, who's now a faculty member at Ithaca College. He brought this to us. We've changed the questions over the years, and we always improve it and make it better. But this is the form that we all use when we meet with faculty. And I personally like to write on paper. I don't use a computer when I type on it because I have found when I first started, I used a computer to type it. And then I found like that computer was a barrier between the faculty member and myself. So I do it on paper, I write it down, and that's helped me. I think that my staff might do other things differently. This form is created on the backward design model. So it's basically just walking them through the questions that you would ask yourself if you were designing a course using backward design. This allows us to be consistent so that if they're meeting with me or if they're meeting with a Cherie or Sarah, they're getting a consistent experience so there's not any real difference. I mean, we're obviously different people, but it gives them, it's the same process. And I already said I did it on Princeant. And then Chris is going to share this, and you can have a link to our intake form on what we ask. So typically I'll ask these questions, but they'll answer questions on page 4 when we're on page 2 because they'll be talking, and I won't stop them. I'll just let them talk. Right. So this is the form that we use. So one of the things I wanted to mention, and Cherie had reminded me this, is that we have to moderate our expectations of what we're hoping for from our faculty. A lot of our instructors, we are an R1 institution, so a lot of our instructors have not had any formal teaching experience before coming here. Maybe they have been TAs, maybe, but they're not, a lot of them don't know educational theory. They might not know terminology. They have very little familiarity with instructional design concepts or any of the words that we use so easily. So we try to approach the situation in that they don't know anything, and whether that's bad or good, it has helped us with making sure that we're not expecting too much, and it lets us meet them where they are. So if they're not at this very high level in their teaching practice yet, that's okay. We're here for all levels. And during the meeting, we do a lot of reflective questioning. So typically, and if you all know me, you know that I talk a lot, but typically in the meetings that I have with faculty, I try to moderate how I'm talking. I usually am just asking them questions to reflect back their practice. So this article right here by Leon Barnett, Using Reflective Questioning to Promote Collaborative Dialogue, it's geared around mentor teachers for K-12 or principals or administrators for K-12, but I think it is a wonderful article. It's from 1994. It's still extremely relevant to any time you're meeting with anybody in a consulting role, and that it talks about how to set up different types of reflective questioning, clarifying questions, or different types of questions that you might want to ask. And so I highly recommend getting your hands on that article, and it's quite short. It's only a couple pages, so I really like it. But what this reflective question, oh, did I skip a page? What this reflective questioning does is it allows you to have the meeting and have them speaking most of the meeting. Just like, you know, you want your students, when you're teaching in the classroom, you want to hear their voices more than your voice. It allows the faculty member to articulate their thoughts during the meeting. I try, you try to be very non-judgmental or neutral. So if they say something, and this happens quite often where I was just like, oh, that's a horrible idea, I'm not going to tell them right in there, oh yeah, that's a horrible idea. Instead, I would be like, oh, what do you think would happen if this try to get them to reflect on why maybe this is not the best idea. Example being, this was a number of years ago, but I was meeting with a faculty member. It was a 5-week online course, and they didn't want to have any due dates in the course. They just wanted the students to be able to submit things whenever they wanted to. And, obviously I think this is not the best idea. And so instead of being like, yeah, you shouldn't do that, I asked them, okay, so what do you think is going to happen if you don't have due dates? How about you have to have your grades done in 3 days after the 5? And so asking a lot of follow-up and additional questions to get them to deepen their thinking. And again, I try to avoid providing any sort of advice or guidance during the sessions. Now, it doesn't mean that I never give them any advice, but it's definitely not the goal of the session. Reminding you all that we are not trainers, so our job is not to tell them what to do. Our job is to have them think about what makes sense in their course. So that's generally how we run our sessions. So again, I'm having what do you do in your meetings? What do you do that's not reflective questioning?
Would anybody like to talk? Since we don't have a lot of people, you can just unmute yourself and have the mic.
Look, I was a teacher and I can wait you out.
Well, the other thing too is I really just want to second that last point as well. I think I really like the way you put it. I've always thought that, but that idea of we're not trainers, like most of us are not trainers. Some people may be trainers that, who are doing maybe more like Blackboard support and that sort of thing. And in that case, you're right. But when the consultations that we're talking about here, where it's, the context is going to change so differently between consultation to consultation. Advice is kind of, if you start out with advice, you're just going to turn them off immediately. You really have to take it all in and then only give advice very cautiously and only if really prodded and you feel like it's appropriate.
I usually only give advice if they specifically ask me a question that I can't redirect back onto them. So, and I don't know their course. This may be the first time that I'm meeting with them, and I don't know the ins and outs of their course. I don't know their students. They know their content in their course more than I do, and what has worked for me in the courses I taught might not work for them. But usually how I do, and that's usually how I preface things when I do give advice, and I say, well, this is the type of course that I teach. These are the type of students that are typically in my courses, and this is what's worked for me. I don't know if it will work for you, but you could try it. What I also want to avoid is that, well, Andrea told me that I should use blog in my course, and that ended up being awful. Andrea doesn't know anything, and I'm never going to come and talk to her again. So that is the specific reason, I try to avoid giving advice. I try to just ask them a lot of questions and get them to give, to come up with what they want. And I think that also helps with buy-in, because with faculty, what I have found, and maybe this is different across the, different institutions, but I have found if you can make the faculty member think that the idea was their idea, then they are more bought into it. So if it's just my idea and I'm telling you to do something, you might not be as excited about it. But if you, and I'm doing air quotes but you can't see me, came up with the idea, then you're more invested in it. And I have found that to be true in the years that I've been doing this.
So, Andrea, this is Ann. I actually had that yesterday. I was with the faculty and working through some new parts of a course. And so I did wait it out like we talked about. I did at points. What I did was I took some notes in my mind, like the things she was mentioning, so that we could come back to them, because many things came out at once, as we know. So I was trying to, like you said, the reflective question. So she did come to the conclusion. I showed a couple of examples, but really depended more on what she was, like you said, her conclusion. Because I've seen in the past, I've been in consultation when I was not the one consulting, and I've seen someone present way too many ideas to a faculty, and all they did was confuse them and get them anxious. So I think what Chris is saying there too, and you were saying, is that wait time. And then if you can provide, sometimes they want something back. So if you can give just a little bit of an idea, and like you said, say this is how I did it, but in this situation, it does help them, because they really, knowing faculty, they really want to do it their way, and how you can help them best. It seems to always work best to me.
Agreed. I agree.
And I hate to be the rude one here, but they called another meeting, and I'm so appreciate what we've gone through just this time. I have to go to another meeting.
That's
So
totally
I hope you don't think I'm rude leaving, but I have to go.
I think you're very rude, and we're going to talk about you one day.
Bye, Ann.
I will see you at other of the events, but thank you so much for sharing. I really appreciate it. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
No. Okay.
Anybody else want to chime in or put something in the chat about something that they do when they're meeting with faculty that they find is effective or maybe not effective? We want to be brave and
where have I messed? I've messed up a lot. I'm a human being, so I always mess up. But I definitely think, when I've told them specifically, this is what you should be doing, is really when I faltered the most. I try to be very, suggesting during the time.
Laura mentioned she begins by letting faculty tell her what she could help them with, and right. What are you looking for? What can I help you with?
Right.
Totally.
Because a lot of the times they think they have a problem, but that's not really the problem that they have. You have to spend that time getting them to articulate what they're even there and what the problem they're trying to solve. All right. Any more or?
Patience. Yes, patience is important.
Oh yeah.
Yes, totally.
Definitely.
What helps too with that is I feel like maybe establishing a rapport, via email or on a phone call first, and it's a lot easier to kind of get a sense of what someone's like, especially if you don't know them, because I'm the kind of person, when I talk to somebody, I use a lot of body language. And if I'm frustrated with someone, I'm sure my body is showing it, even though I'm not saying anything. So if I talk to someone first, I can get a sense of, okay, do I need to really keep in check, what I'm going to be sort of showing that person and meeting with them, and try to be as kind of neutral as possible, or appear to be as, not frustrated with them or impatient with them. Yeah, totally. Tonka said she always asks why they are using a questionable strategy and try to come up with something else that meets that need. It gives them alternatives that might work better for them.
Yeah, good idea. Yeah.
And Sarah Wyman said, sometimes after a classroom observation, when we meet, we try to brainstorm together on ways to involve more student voices, because some were wandering out of class, even sleeping on their desks. So I've seen that in observations. I worry about being too critical. How do you coach group work after seeing a class with low engagement? Oh, that's a good question.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great question. Do we want the answer of that, or that was just like?
I think she's asking your advice, Andrea. What's your advice?
How do I coach group work when I see a class that has low engagement? Well, for group work, I generally advise faculty to have assigned roles for the group, and have the groups have some sort of report out feature. I circulate the room, and I provide very clear expectations on what the group is supposed to produce. And then I, of course, never give group work that isn't meant for a group. If an individual can do the work by themselves, then that's not group work. You need to give a task that involves more than one person to be able to complete the task in the time allotted. Because if one person can do it, why are you making a group do it? That doesn't make sense. So I think go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, if it's not just group work, but if it's like in general, like I think, I observed plenty of classes where students were sleeping in the faculty member was not aware that they were engaged, or they were online doing shopping or something like that, where you sit in the back and you can see what they're doing. So in those cases, I would never just I would usually let them know directly. Usually so if it was a consultation, I'd always give them a report before we met.
Right.
And I would just say, this is what I observed. But, and then when I met with them, I would always, I would never say that first. I would always
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
you
do
got to compliment sandwich it.
yeah, you have to, right. Yeah, you have to always appreciative inquiry, like what it is that you're doing really well, and really lead with that, and try not to be too obvious about it, and then kind of try to say, okay, this is what you're doing really well, and how can you kind of, redirect students to kind of build on the things that you're doing well, or something like that.
I also have, and unsurprisingly, have an observation form that I use when we observe. So it's sort of built around that sort of what you're doing right idea, and then suggestions. So it's built around being more positive, which, if any of you know me, that's not a strength of mine. All right, so I'm going to move on to after the meeting. So you've pre-meetinged them, you've met with them, and then what do you do after the meeting? Well, we usually share the document that we were writing on the intake form. And so during the meeting, I'll write it. Then when they leave, I type the responses into the form. And we have a shared sort of comment that we use. So there's 4 of us, and we add these sort of comments because a lot of the questions that we say, or a lot of the comments, or a lot of the suggestions that we use are the same. So very, very rarely do I meet a faculty member, they have something that's super, super unique. So, and this is the time that I do offer suggestions. So for example, if you can read this, I know it's small, but it's just meant for the pictures, but one of the things is have you thought about using a rubric? Here are some options, so this is the time that I do offer more suggestions so that I can provide them with examples and links and things like that. And so I send this to them and I say to them, here is what I wrote down. Please let me know if I recorded anything inaccurately or you have any questions about my comments. And a lot of the times there'll be, they'll put comments on there and they'll have a shared dialogue in the comment section of the document. And I know that they'll come back and get to these links that I've talked about. A lot of the time we'll talk about Blackboard test generators, and we're not there to tell them about how to use them, but I'll send them the link to how to use them. I also always link everything to our resource page. We've spent a good amount of time building out our resource page. So if ever I'm talking about, have you thought about a rubric? Then I'll link them to our resource page where it has all this information about rubrics. So again, they're getting that's in front of them, so they know, okay, maybe later on, I have a question about active learning in large classes. Oh, that's right, they have this resource page. And they'll know that that's there for them so that they can self-serve their what they may need. And then on the resource page, we usually have, we cite relevant literature. So, because our faculty are very into, okay, well, where's the studies on that? What does the literature say? So we need to make sure that we have that. And then I also I share citations with them. And the one that I love the most, and this again is a Google add-on, it's called PaperPile. And I think you can use this without Google, but I use it with Google Chrome because it makes it so easy. And I use this if I recently had been meeting with a faculty member and they were like, oh, you were talking to me about making videos and you had said something about making them short and, best practices. Can you send me some literature on that? And I already have this all built into my PaperPile. I have a folder and I can just generate a link that shares all of the different articles with them in this nice package that they can have. And so I find this has been very helpful for me for them. So I send the intake form. And then what I like to do is follow up with them in a number of weeks or however, but because I am very, very forgetful, I can't remember to follow up with people. So again, I use another add-on for my email and it's called Boomerang. And what this does is it, as the name implies, sends my emails back to me. So I'll send them that intake form and then I'll click the Boomerang, and then I say, in 2 weeks, send me back this form, and then I know, okay, let's see what they're doing. Let's follow up on them. And I use this for everything, not just for intakes. You know, Boomerang saves my life. It makes me look like I'm always on top of things when I'm never really on top of anything. This just does this for me. So I really, really appreciate this product, and I pay for the Pro version. It's only, I think, $35, and it keeps me on top of everything. Especially if you have Gmail, you know, it reminds you now. It'll say, like, did you want to reply to this, or did you want to do this? And this sort of lets you schedule that out so that, you know, if you send an email, you can say, if nobody replies, remind me to reply. So I find it to be really helpful. And this is usually what I do after the meeting.
Andrea?
Yes.
Tonka asked if you have the information packets that you send out in email. Do you have it somewhere else on the website in case they don't want to ask, but can look for it for themselves?
The information packets?
Yeah, I guess the things that you're sending them via email after the meeting.
So I don't keep the intake form, because that's just to them. So I don't put that publicly on the web, because I would never, you know, share their specific course information with other people.
So the paper pile files is what you was talking about.
Okay, yeah. So I do, sometimes I mean, those are in paper piles still. I have put some of them on our resource page, but generally have those links to the articles on the resource page as well. So I don't, you know, but that's a great idea. Maybe I should be putting the paper pile links on the resource page, because I don't typically do that, no. But I'm writing that down. But yeah, this is what I do after. It has been really helpful, and I know that sharing the intake forms and having the collective comments has been really helpful. So that's pretty much what I do. What about you all?
This is where we wait.
This is where we wait. I was a middle school teacher, so I can wait. And this is really the end. This was my whole presentation. So what would you do is not just what do you do afterwards, but in general, when you consult with faculty, what do you do? Or do you have any questions that possibly this group of folks here, all 19 of us, can help you brainstorm a solution to the problem that you're having?
Tonka just wrote, she summarized the meeting to keep us on the same page and give them an open door feeling if they have follow-up questions in an email.
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I agree. That's definitely why I do it, because I want them to feel like they can, this was only it wasn't a one-time thing. You can always come back. You can always meet again. The door is open always.
Yeah, I always felt like when I was at Brockport, you know, and doing more of this, I always felt like these were the, you know, almost the most time consuming, but also, you know, some of the most rewarding parts of the work, you know,
Sure.
and and I always appreciated the chance to observe and, you know, and not just consult without observing. But I always struggled with the workflow. So all the kind of suggestions that you have here are super helpful. And I wish I had them back then, because, you know, I would literally write reports new every time, and it would take so long. And I was appreciative that I wouldn't have too many requests for observations, because I could never have kept up with them and done all the other things that I was doing. So thanks for all that.
Yeah, a lot of the times if I do course observations, I mean, I hate to tell this to faculty, but a lot of them have the same issues, you know, so I don't need to repeat the same thing. I mean, just keep your shared bank of, you know, just like you do when you grade, you know, when you grade your students' work, they all have the same issues. So you just have this stored bank of comments. What I used to do before I switched all Google is that I would create macros in Microsoft Office that I would be like, star 17, and it would do the 17 comments and everything like that. So I think you can do that with like Turnitin. It has like the quick comments and things like that. So these are my quick comments for that I give to faculty, because they all sort of have the same you know, ways to enhance their teaching.
Laura shared that we have a fairly informal process. After I meet with a faculty member, we might exchange a couple emails if the faculty member has a follow-up question. Sometimes I'll send a resource by email or a link to register for one of our upcoming workshops if applicable.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And I do the same thing, is that if we have a workshop that's pertinent to anything that we've discussed, then, you know what I've struggled with, and maybe somebody here has a solution, is I know that when I reach out to our IT services, they send me this, how was our service? How was we don't do anything like that. I don't know if they felt this consultation was helpful. And I'm wondering if anybody in the meeting here does anything like that, where, after the consultation, they send some sort of survey or some sort of, something to see how it went. Because I would love to hear what you're doing if that's something that you're doing.
Yeah, I mean, Tonka shared that she did that in the workshops. She used to run, and I know we all do that in workshops, but yeah, I'd be curious to see if anybody does that for consultations. I mean, we used to do that in the overall survey we'd sent to faculty, but there was no way of knowing if the people that actually answered those questions were people that, who they were. Oh, like how, if I did an observation, or it was just like a short conversation, or what.
Because I'd love to know that. We have, and I mentioned this earlier, we have the Teaching Online Certification Program. And one of the steps of that program is for them to meet with us one-on-one. And then when we evaluate that program as a whole, one of the questions is about the one-on-one consultations. So we do get it a little bit
Right.
there. But if you're coming to consult with us and you're not part of TOCP, I don't know if you felt the time but I also don't want to do something like a customer satisfaction survey like IT does, because I don't want them to perceive us as IT. Like, it's very important that for us, and maybe this isn't true because I think there are probably people that are IT on here. I want them to perceive us as pedagogy and best practices with teaching, and not tech support.
That's a good question.
So that was.
Well, there's a question. So before I get to Sarah's question, Tonka said that she's wondering what the value of a one-on-one consultation survey would be. The strength of the survey is anonymity. If you get that away from the participants, will you get an honest review, right?
Yeah,
that makes
good,
sense.
valid. Yeah. I guess what I see, and maybe I'm going to answer my own question with what I'm going to say right now, is that I would want to know, am I doing a good job? Like, when I'm in this consultation, like, could it be better? Well, how could I fix that is to have one of my, coworkers come and watch me consult and give me, they do the consultations too, so they could come and see how I could improve. So it's sort of just like a course observation, but a consultation observation.
Yeah, I mean, that's actually, I think, a good question to consider. I mean, how do you assess this kind of a service, right? I mean, I think, having, two people consult. I mean, I almost think of it like, when if you see a therapist, right? The therapist will say, well, you usually have that initial meeting, and if it's not a good fit, you see another therapist, or,
right.
I mean, I think it's almost the same kind of thing here. It's like success typically is not necessarily like, they love you. It's more like, did they make a change? Did they do something, right? So you could assess that, right? So you could kind of, if you have a significant number of people that you've done consultations with, you can kind of maybe survey them or something like that, and like en masse, right? And ask them about their practice, and maybe kind of pull something out from that.
This is like the eternal question I always have with the value of the center, is that, yes, I can count how many people came in, but like, did it change the way you teach for the better? That's we always struggle with how to best assess that, not just, bodies in the room, but, changing the impact.
Sarah's question actually is kind of related to this. So she asked, how do you entice the faculty that are reluctant to reflect on their teaching? Some are so resistant, but I can see some shy, defensive interests. And so how do you, I mean, is it, do you ever kind of like go out and see if, to try to like get people to come and consult? I mean, do you have ways to market this, or is it just kind of like, I'm not marketing this? I mean, they come to me or they don't come to me?
So, in general, I mean, we're here as a service. We're optional. So if you don't want to talk to me, I'm not going to be offended by that, because I have plenty of people that, like, there are probably a ton of our instructors that could benefit from having a consultation, but we don't force ourselves on people. So I guess I don't try to entice people to reflect on their teaching if they don't want to. I mean, I think that's really, you have to be motivated to want to change and improve, to even come and see me in the first place. Because I know there are tons of faculty who think that our center is a waste of space and we're a waste of money, and that's fine. I mean, you're entitled to think that. It doesn't hurt my feelings. We have 1,000 faculty and there's 4 of us. We're busy. So
Yeah, well, I was always thinking, like, too, in that case, I mean, there's that's why we try to match our services to needs, right? So
right.
in that case, I mean, maybe in a one-to-one consultation, if someone's not willing to reflect on their teaching and they really just want to either be validated for what they're doing and told they're doing a great job, which is kind of a waste of time, right? Or they just, or they can't even, get to a place, they're defensive, right? So either one of those people aren't really going to benefit from a consultation. It's really not worth your time or their time to go through it, right? Not to say that we should turn someone away if you perceive that. So it's actually a good question. You hope I didn't remember having too much of that, when I was at Brockport, but I was thinking in those cases, maybe you start to direct them to resources, or you offer workshops around how to be more like reflective in your teaching and how to be more critically reflective, and direct them to those kind of resources, and try to sort of say, listen, maybe you do a little of this first, and then I'll come and I'll observe, or something like that. Try to deflect a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I've had faculty that I've gone and observed their class, and I've given them suggestions, and not that they were defensive, but they're just like, oh, well, this is how I do things, and you don't teach engineering, so you don't know. And I'm just like, all right, well, I mean, you came to me and you were the one that perceived a problem with your course. But that's fine, I'm here. Even if you maybe in a couple years you've thought about it more and you want to come back, and I'll still be here. I'm not offended by where you are right now. And I understand that, in at our institution, they're really focused on their research first and foremost. So a lot of the things, maybe this is just too mentally taxing right now. Like, maybe they're not in a space that, like, teaching is going to be something that they can really reflect on right now, and that's fine. Maybe in a couple years, maybe they're at a different space in their career, and we're here.
You know what? It made me think that what I would do in those situations is I would just stop talking about teaching and ask them about their research, ask them about their content, because that's where they would get the most excited, and just establish that good rapport, leave it at that. And then maybe at some point in the future, if they're ready, then they didn't leave feeling like you just sort of said, oh, you're not ready, beat it, right? No, okay, I had a nice conversation with Andrea about engineering.
But that faculty member and he did come back. He did come back, so I was very happy, because he was just like, I'm not ready to do any of this, and I'm like, okay, it's fine, because it's hard, especially when they're not tenured yet and they're in these fields where expected to bring in grants, and they're it is hard. I recognize that, and I don't want to diminish how difficult their lives are.
Are there any other questions while I dig up the link to Andrea's presentation and share it in the chat? Anybody want to jump in on the mic?
Okay.
I don't see anything else in the chat. Any final words, Andrea, while I...
What I would love is if anybody has any sort of like intake forms or any sort of observation forms or anything that you all use, I'd love to be able to see what everybody else is using, because like I said, we've been using ours for a while, and it's been successful. And sometimes when you've been doing things for a while, for so long, you sort of become blinded to what other people are doing. So I'd really love to see what other people are doing that's been successful, so I can borrow some of your wonderful ideas and enhance what we're doing, because we're always, want to be continuously improving our practice.
Hi, Andrea.
Hi.
Sumantra here.
Oh, hi, Sumantra. Sumantra's
Hi,
here to
I don't know
advocate how great I am, right? No, just kidding.
I don't know how I landed up in this presentation. Frankly speaking, I ran up to your office. I went to your office to attend this presentation, and then I came to know it was a webinar. But anyway, I love the presentation, and I'm a faculty just for all of you, because I think I'm the odd man out here. I misread the presentation topic, but it was a wonderful presentation. Okay, I thought it was to do with consulting of faculty out to the outside world, so that's the reason I came in. Okay, but I love the presentation. I just want to sort of give my experience as a faculty who has been one of Andrea's students. Okay, so I just wanted to give you a heads up on that. Andrea and their team does a wonderful job, and one of the things that she said, and I think that's something that I think all of y'all should be aware of, that as a new faculty, when I came in 2014 fall, I didn't know how to teach. Pretty simple. I did not know what to do. So I just got introduced to CLT. I think you were right. It was the orientation program that got me introduced to this, and there were a couple of other faculties in my school. I'm from the School of Management, who sort of told me to attend your presentation. I didn't know what I was getting into, but I started attending, and it's 6th year now, I think, 5th or 6th year. I still attend whenever I get to see any presentations from them. It gives us, I mean, we are focused on research, and you're right, my tenure is up this year, so I am under pressure. But it also gives me a very good outlook from an outside perspective, what can make a good teaching. So I think from all of you who are the support staff of faculties, I think approaching a faculty right when they start their job is a very good approach, because then they will see the value more than, and Andrea, you are very right, we do not consider CLT as one of the punishments. It's to do more to do with enhance. Yeah, I look at it. I mean, any people who have joined after me, whenever they have some difficulty, I said, okay, go and talk to them. Just attend any of these presentations. Start talking to them. You will see a better view of how it looks like. So yes, and I just wanted to sort of give you a faculty's intake. So if you have any, if anybody wants to ask me a question as a faculty, how I feel, I'm perfectly open to do that. So if you want to.
It was great that you were
here.
Thank you so much. I'm glad that you stuck around, because it's good to have faculty perspective on these things, definitely.
Yes, yeah. I truly speaking, it was something I just went to Andrea's office and I said, where is this? And somebody said, it is not here. I said, where are we? And then I saw I misread it. So anyway, that was a good. So I'll be online. So if anybody want to shoot me a question to know the faculty's perspective, I'm willing to share that.
Thank you.
That's too funny.
Tonka, there was another question there from Tonka. Do you you have written materials to market your services to faculty? These kind of services, is it on the website?
We have a website. We also have flyers that we give them, and promotional items. Yes, we are event flyers. We send to them, and we have different. We use Canva a lot to make it look like we're fancy. Although now that we have Sarah and Elise, we can make things actually look fancy and not use Canva as much. But yeah, we have plenty of promotional items that we give to faculty. At new faculty orientation, because we're in charge of it, we also have like a tabling time that the faculty go around and meet all the various faculty support organizations, and we have promotional items like that. We used to send stuff to new faculty. I don't know if we do that anymore, but that's something we've done in the past.
So just a couple more things, and then I guess we'll wrap it up. Yeah, Sarah just mentioned that this is good advice working with new faculty. It seems like we are slowly cultivating a new culture of pedagogical self-reflection by working closely with the new hires, making this part of everyday interactions. How are things going in class? Yeah, you really have to start with new faculty. That's why I think new faculty orientation and your involvement in that is super important.
Yeah, starting with new faculty, if it's just like, oh, this is how we do things here. Like, if they don't have any frame of reference to, you just come and see us when you need help. Like Sumantra said, like, you just go, this is what you do. And so it helps, and I think we do get a lot of buy-in from new faculty or other new faculty that tell their new faculty. It's very helpful.
And then Tonka wanted to know if you'd share your flyer.
Yeah, absolutely.
Your email, I think, was in the slide deck, right? Probably. If not, they could track you
If,
down at your center.
Yeah, you can, Andrea MacArgel, you can search me down. It's not a popular last name. So.
Yeah. So I'm just going to put one more time in the chat. I did put the link to your presentation there. I'm going to add, again, the link to where I'm going to post it in the SUNY Faculty Development Community Practice group and workplace. So if you're not there, you can join that and get it there. And there's my email as well in case you would like to do a webinar in the future, or if you have ideas for webinars or other things that we can do system-wide around supporting the work that you do. Let me know. I just want to do a thank Andrea. We're all going to clap. You can't hear it, but you know, clapping.
Clap.
Thank you. That's my clapping. There you go.
Okay.
And thank you so much. I'm going to end it now, and everyone have a good rest of your semester. Thanks again, Andrea.
Have a good holiday season.